There's insanity in the control room.
I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
Makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
How you like that, boy?
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. It's Thursday. We got a great show for everybody. Fun times. We're gonna get into the drama. We've got some drama going on. A little bit of that. First, we're gonna talk about Capitol rioters. Once again, being caught from their own stupidity. Really amazing stuff. We've got the ultimate Karen, the return of Amy Cooper. Oh no, what has she done this time? Has she endangered another black man? Not quite. Drama, as I said. We have also a really good example of the power of propaganda and, you know, how conspiracy theories destroy people. They really, really do. We're also going to talk about Eve Fartlow. I don't know if you've seen that going around. I'm going to explain the story and why everybody's dunking on this particular person, this music journalist. Interesting. Music journalist. Yeah, why does the internet hate her? Why did she become... So there's one important rule on Twitter, on the internet. You do not want to be the it person. Okay? You don't want to be it. Because it never works out well for you. And every day, Twitter chooses someone to be it. And so, yeah. By the way, those of you who have noticed the logo, this was, of course, fan-made by Veggie Godzilla. So I want to thank I want to thank him for doing that, for setting, you know, for sending this. I like it. I liked it a lot. And so hope he doesn't mind that I kind of use that in the corner. I do, again, appreciate that. I'm sorry I didn't have it up earlier, but, you know, it's he's getting a little busy around here. But yes, Veggie Godzilla, thank you so much again for sending that in and allowing me to use that. So I really, really appreciate that. All right. That's moving on, by the way. We also have another story about how Texas wants its residents to pay for lost profits for oil companies. Oh, of course. Of course. Jeez. So here we go. It's a full show. Lots of drama. Let's do it. Okay. I probably should adjust all these now. I can do it later. I can do it later. All right. We'll do it live. The hunt for those involved in the January 6th Capitol riots continues with now just over 400 arrests that have been made so far. And of course, you have more coming. I mean, there were, hundreds of people there. But I don't know. I don't know how many people were involved. I know there were a lot of people, thousands of people at the rally that happened before, but I don't know how many people actually invaded the Capitol. But nonetheless, we have more arrests that are coming, and a lot of them have to do with the ineptness and stupidity of those involved. Yeah, you have to be a special kind of stupid to invade the Capitol building, but it gets even better, or I should say, even worse. Now, on Thursday, KOMO News reported that federal agents arrested a battleground Washington man for participating in the Capitol riot after uncovering evidentiary photos from the trash bin of his already arrested Capitol rioter father's phone. So his dad had the phone. Apparently the son used the phone to film himself, or to film himself with the son, something like that. And at the end of the day, was basically trying to get rid of the evidence by throwing it into the, not throwing it, putting it into the virtual trash bin on your phone. Okay, then. Well, let me give you more details. Jeremy Grace was arrested on Wednesday in Molalla, Oregon, on unlawful entry of a restricted building, among other charges. His father, Jeffrey Grace, was arrested back in February after being linked to the January 6th Capitol riot. In March, KATU interviewed the son, who also lives in Battleground, and said he did nothing wrong, although he admitted to attending the Save America Trump rally in Washington, D.C., with his son. Now, going to that rally, I'm going to say the rally itself, totally fine. All right, you want to go to a rally, First Amendment, freedom of speech, right? What happened afterwards, not freedom of speech. That's when they invaded the Capitol grounds, went on the Capitol building, smashed windows, smeared feces, beat up cops. One of them died, Brian Sicknick. And then, of course, you had lawmakers that are being threatened. Even Mike Pence. You remember? Mike Pence. They threatened Mike Pence. Hang Mike Pence. Hang Mike Pence. Hang Mike Pence.
Mike Pounds.
Or whatever you say. However you say his name at this point. Okay. But look, all of that stuff together, not fine. Turns out those happen to be crimes, some of them serious, and a few actually involving real jail time. Now, look, the majority of the Capitol rioters didn't necessarily get involved in the massive, in the amounts of violence or things like that, but they still face things like trespassing or stealing mail. And so a lot of them are going to get misdemeanor offenses, but there are a few that will likely get some decent, jail time. So now it would make sense that those of you who were involved would decide, oh, maybe I should delete the selfies and the videos I took of myself while I was doing this very illegal thing that I should not have done. And not only that, but maybe I should, if I know that I'm going to get in trouble and my son is there, well, maybe I should try to, protect a member of my family, from getting in trouble. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to delete stuff off my phone because obviously putting it into the recycle bin is going to, delete all the evidence. Except that, it's not. It didn't. In fact, in an interview with the FBI, Jeffrey said he ended up getting separated from his son before he entered the Capitol building. And maybe that is true. It was a chaotic scene. But that doesn't mean that his son wasn't there. In fact, agents said they later checked the cell phone for evidence and found 3 selfie-style videos in the son's phone's trash folder, all dated January 6, 2021. Oops. Sad. Once again, this is a situation where you can tell that they're not sending their best. I guess he didn't realize that there are ways to extract data that you deleted. Okay, it doesn't. I mean, again, computer forensics, pretty important science. There are ways to, get this information, even if you deleted it, even if you sanitized your hard drive, reformatted your device, or whatever. In fact, you'd have to pretty thoroughly destroy any storage medium to make it so that old data would be unrecoverable. But on a phone, for example, moving to something to the trash does not get rid of it. You would actually have to take some major steps. The first thing would be to have a factory reset on your phone. Even then, for somebody who happens to be motivated to get that data, well, I mean, your data could still be recovered even with a factory reset. Not only that, but there's encryption measures that will not keep the government out of your phone forever. Neither is reformatting your SD card. The safest way to get rid of all your data is to completely and utterly annihilate your phone. Obliterate it. It's got to be like nothing more than a pile of goo, shredded, melted, burned, obliterated. Most people don't realize the lengths that you have to go to destroy evidence, to destroy data. And I'm not saying that you should. I'm just saying that if you really want to, you might have to, I don't know, do some research on it and try to figure it out. And like, okay, these are the steps that I have to do to get rid of this video, all that, this evidence. And even so, what about if you had posted it somewhere? Again, for example, on Parler, which is now like a gigantic repository for the FBI. I mean, so, again, we're not talking about smart people here, okay? They don't realize that what goes on the internet stays on the internet. But what do you expect from pro-Trump QAnon supporters who stormed the Capitol building and on behalf of a proto-fascist who in reality doesn't give two shits about them or the country? They don't think about these things. They don't think. I'm saying that they're not very bright. Just some low IQ individuals, okay? They have no idea how things actually work. In fact, if they did, they wouldn't have been there in the first place. To storm the Capitol to try to intimidate people into not certifying the election. Again, going back to Mike Pence, they knew that the Vice President Pence, did not have the power to stop the certification, even though they believed that he did. No, it was largely ceremonial. And that was it. He had no power to stop the certification at all. Again, not the brightest bulbs. And who knew that their stupidity and complete lack of knowledge about everything would end up being their downfall? Oh, right. Everybody. I mean, just saying. Step 1, empty recycle bin. Step 2, wipe the storage. Step 3, remove storage. Step 4, blow storage up. Step 5, rebuild home after explosion with TV. Ah, good stuff. SpongeBob Mike Pants.
Mike Pounds.
Fun stuff. All right. Find an active volcano and throw your phone in. Yeah, well, make it like the trip to Mount Doom. There you go. We'll get it. It'll still be on the cloud, whether on Google or Yahoo. It's the same. Yeah, exactly. Again, once it's on the internet, it's on the internet forever. Very difficult to get something off the internet once it's there. Okay. Let's go to Amy Cooper. Now, you might remember Amy Cooper. She was the white woman who called 911 on a black man at Central Park. This actually happened last year, which to me it feels like it happened about 5 years ago. But this happened, and she, called the cops on this blackbird watcher, Christian Cooper, absolutely no relation. And this is at a time where lots of videos had been coming out of unarmed black men being shot by police. So now she's back in the news. No, she did not call the cops on any more black people, thankfully. However, she is suing her former employer. Forget this, racial discrimination. Because of course she did. Wow. All right, so now Cooper had lost her job at an investment firm, Franklin Templeton, last May after calling 911 on this bird watcher after falsely accusing him of threatening her. She said, "I'm taking a picture and calling the cops. I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life." No, the only person who was threatening anybody's life there was her. Again, you know that black men get shot for no reason in this country, and that there's an entire history of white affluent women weaponizing the police against black people, making false charges that ends up getting them either jailed or killed. Emmett Till is a great example. It's the most famous example, who was, he was lynched in Mississippi in 1955 after being accused of offending a white woman. That woman, her last name is Bryant, had admitted to lying about Till making unwanted advances towards her during a trial. So, look, that is an ugly history of horrible lies being used by some people against black people. That's why she was fired. But no, Amy Cooper is now claiming, no, I'm the real victim here. Okay, I've been victimized by the company that fired me because of cancel culture. Yes, it's all cancel culture. In fact, according to her lawsuit, the defendants knew that they had not performed, the defendants being the company, that they had not performed an investigation into the May 25, 2020 incident in Central Park involving our plaintiff, but nevertheless published statements that they had. Those statements concluded that Amy Cooper was a racist, adding that the firm did not seek to interview anybody about the facts surrounding the incident. Amy Cooper maintains in the suit that she called the police out of fear for her safety and that of her dog, the dog that she was choking, and that the call was not racially motivated. The lawsuit further claims that Franklin Templeton's decision to invoke racism in its statement announcing Cooper's termination was defamatory and that her civil rights had been violated. What civil rights? The defendant's announcements to the effect that they had conducted an investigation and that the investigation concluded indisputably that the plaintiff was a racist, when defendants knew they had not conducted an investigation which concluded indisputably that the plaintiff was a racist, was extreme and outrageous, the suit claims. The Manhattan DA's office in February had dropped a misdemeanor charge against Cooper after she completed an education and therapy classes on racial equity, which apparently had no effect at all. I mean, all right. Now she is seeking lost pay, emotional damages, as well as punitive damages to be determined by trial. Oh, here we go with the cancel culture. Okay. Wow. Talk about total 100% Karen behavior. The Karen of Karens. You've got to be kidding me. Now, again, this is somebody who claims to be the victim. What about the actual victim in this situation? And I'm not just talking about the dog. Christian Cooper. Now, Christian Cooper, actually, when this whole thing was, possibly going to turn into a criminal trial with a misdemeanor, he's like, look, why don't we just leave her alone? All right? Why don't we leave her alone? She's not the focus of here. Why don't we actually do something about the system that encourages this, the actual issue? In fact, here's what he said. Focusing on charging Amy Cooper lets white people off the hook from all of that. They can scream for her head while leaving their own prejudices unexamined. They can push for a prosecution and pat themselves on the back for having done something about racism when they've actually done nothing. And their own, Amy Cooper remains only one purse clutch in the presence of a black man away. Based. This guy's 100% right. It is that culture. It is that implicit bias that's in a lot of people. Again, the purse clutching is a great example. A black man gets onto an elevator with a white woman. You know, there's that body language, and you know, the protecting, the clutching of the purse, and the, you know, defensive posture, and it's all because of this implicit bias that is in a lot of people. I mean, that's really the problem of society that we need to look into. And so, you know, he's again absolutely right. Here's what he added. Considering that Amy Cooper has already lost her job and her reputation, it's hard to see what is to be gained by a criminal charge, aside from the upholding of principle. If her current setbacks aren't deterrent enough to others seeking to weaponize race, it's unlikely the threat of a legal action would change that. He also wrote that if the fear of the police would have done me harm, or if the fear is that police would have done me harm after the woman's call, then the solution is to fix policing. I must err on the side of compassion and choose not to be involved in this prosecution. The man, and the reason I say based is because the man does not care about punishing Amy Cooper. He cares about fixing the system. Amy is only worried about herself, and it just shows the dichotomy between the two. How one is worried about, hey, look, I don't want anybody else to be in the position that I was in, because people get shot and killed by police as a result of this. Whereas Amy's like, I'm the victim, cancel culture, they canceled me, I demand remuneration. The thing is, she did this to herself. She did this to herself and has now taken an entitled mentality to try to blame other people for it. Okay? The difference of how both have handled this a year later is so incredibly stark. And it's an example of how, again, certain white people feel a little bit of privilege and are so deeply offended by being called a racist or being called out for racial biases instead of actually fixing them. I get, like, for some white people, being called a racist to them is worse than, you know, for them, like I said, it's so much worse than them than actual racism. Like, how dare you call me a racist? They get so mad. They get so offended. It is frustrating. But again, Christian only wanted her to learn a lesson, to become a better person. And it's unfortunate that she's not going in that direction. She's not going to take the L and learn something from it. No. She's going to go and, of course, do this ridiculous crap. Now, I promised you some shredding. Let's do, hence the title of the video. And so let's get to it. One person says, remember when some of y'all argued that Amy Cooper must have learned her lesson and didn't deserve any additional adverse outcomes? Yeah. Another person says, thank you, Amy Cooper, for proving once again that you were exactly the person we thought you were. Another person, Adrian Lawrence, says, Amy Cooper once again displays her audacity front and center. It could be the caucasity. I know. I just canceled myself. You can't cancel me. I've already done it to myself. I thought she apologized. She did not. No. Shocked. Not shocked that Amy Cooper turns out to be sorry. Not sorry. Another person says, for those who think aligning with such things as the Democratic Party absolve you of being racist, never forget that Amy Cooper is not a Trump-supporting Republican. She is a Democrat who voted for Obama. She is also a deeply racist white woman. Yeah, and that's it too. It is weaponizing the police against black people for making them feel uncomfortable. And you can absolutely be a racist person and claim to be an ally. Because it's really about what you do, not the things that you say. You can call yourself an ally. You can say, "Oh no, I'm totally fine. I'm not, not racist. No racist bones in my body," and then perpetuate white supremacy. And that's it. You can do that. So it's one of those things where your deeds, what you do, are way more important than the words that you say. And this is a great example of that. Another person said, God, this never ends. I knew we weren't done with the Amy Cooper, the ultimate Karen, who knows how to weaponize her white tears. It's been a year almost to the day, and this woman is still angry she got caught out being racist. This is why we need to hold people like this accountable. Another person says, the racist dog abuser Amy Cooper, who tried to get a black man killed by police simply because he was bird watching, is now suing her former employer for firing her after the viral video surfaced showing her being racist. You see how white supremacy works. And finally, a year ago, the outrageous video of Amy Cooper inspired me to write this piece for the Washington Post about privilege and policing. As public defender, I know that the system isn't broken. It's built like this on purpose. And it's up to us to make transformative change. Absolutely. 100%. It is on us to make change. Again, the implicit bias is not going to go away. You actually have to challenge it as a person, as a human being when it comes to growth. I've had to tackle with my own biases growing up as a white kid in the country. And so we all have to grapple with this. Again, you can profess to be the least racist person in the world, but at the end of the day, you'll still probably end up like Donald Trump, sounding like him at least, and perpetuating white supremacy. Don't do that. You got to learn how to deal and challenge those notions, those presuppositions that you have about groups of people in order to become a better, well-rounded individual and actually have some personal growth. All right. Least racist person. That sounds familiar. Doesn't it, though? All right. So let's go to one more story before the break. Hey, look at that. Thank you for the subscription. Amazing. In fact,
amazing.
There we go. All right. Glad I have that. Debunking disinformation and conspiracies are a big part of the show. That's what I try to do on this show, but rarely do you really get a look into what these conspiracies do to the actual people who believe them and their families. Now, one of those rare looks into what it looks like recently came from a video on TikTok showing a Kentucky man begging his daughter to not get the vaccine. In fact, why don't you listen to this? This is a real conversation.
It's not by definition a vaccine.
Then what is it?
It is a human trial. It is genetic therapy. It's not a vaccine. It doesn't fall under the category of a vaccine. It's not FDA approved.
Why are you trying to buy me off with it, though?
Because I love you. Why do you think I want to buy you off?
I don't want money, though. Like,
I know you don't, but I don't know what else to do.
You didn't do this to Michael and Kelsey. They already got it.
Don't you think I know that? Don't you think I know that? Why do you think I'm fucking crazy? Your mother got it. Why do you think I'm fucking crazy? My family is gone. My family is gone. By the end of this flu season, most of you will be dead. What the fuck do you expect me to be?
Oof. So that was a woman on TikTok named Brianna. And her father is, obviously, you could hear him in the video, incredibly distraught person. So look, I understand the first inclination is to laugh at the crazy man, right? I don't know. I just, I was tough to listen to. Like, this guy believes that he's literally going to lose his family, that they're all going to die as a result of the vaccine. Obviously, it's not true. Getting the vaccine is both safe and effective. No, it's not a human trial. We're not human guinea pigs. mRNA has been around for quite some time. Again, it has been proven safe and effective. Uh, half the country has been vaccinated so far. And you know what? The result is that coronavirus is actually trending down in this country. But the madness here, you can see that. I mean, the real virus here is disinformation. Okay? The disinformation about COVID-19 and about vaccines that's being spread by mostly, you see, right-wing media. Now, again, the video was posted on TikTok, and I feel for her, because what this shows is that she has to deal with the father that is not living in reality. The poor guy has been brainwashed by anti-vax conspiracies. And I guess the newest one that he was referencing, and I can't keep up. It's really difficult to keep up with all the brand new conspiracies on vaccines. But apparently, this one says, "Oh, if you're vaccinated, you're gonna die when it comes to flu season." So somehow, in his mind, or in the minds of these people, that the vaccine will make the flu deadlier and the common cold deadlier. Again, that's not based in anything. There's no actual evidence to support this. There's no science. Obviously, that's not even how vaccines work. In fact, ironically, and this is something that the anti-maskers never really talk about, but since most of us have been wearing masks and staying 6 feet apart, we've had less cases of the common cold and the flu. I mean, just a dramatic decrease in cases of seasonal illness. I mean, think about it. Masks work. Vaccines work. In fact, let me show you. The 7-day average of new cases in America had actually decreased by roughly 80% since its January 2021 peak, now that nearly half of all Americans are fully vaccinated. But again, the conspiracies, they never stop. They never stop. Now, thankfully, there are certain people that you can convince with factual arguments. In fact, you have some people that were initially vaccine hesitant. They're like, "Oh, I don't know about this. I'm hearing all this stuff online, and I'm hearing all these conspiracy theories from the Alex Joneses of the world. The vaccine's gonna turn the frogs gay, and then you're gonna your soul's gonna belong to Beelzebub, and then the aliens are gonna take you up to their ship and shoot you into the sun." I don't know. It's just ridiculous stuff. All right. But there are people that hear conspiracies, and then there are people that, of course, have heard factual things that have happened. Like, for example, vaccine hesitancy in the Black community. There's actually a really good reason for that. It's because there were things like the Tuskegee experiment and actually injecting Black people with real pathogens that, and using them as basically guinea pigs and test subjects. That's some stuff that happened in our history that's pretty damn ugly. That said, okay, now we do have very safe and effective vaccines, and the COVID-19 vaccine is just the newest iteration of it. But anyway, I want to talk about some of the people who were vaccine hesitant and basically tell their story a little bit of how they came around. Okay, now one person was very religious. In fact, she says, this is Chelsea. "I was initially hesitant because of religious reasons. I went to a super small Pentecostal school from 4th to 8th grade. I guess I still had this lingering fear of the microchip, the Bill Gates conspiracy, like, oh, Bill Gates is going to track you with the mark of the beast, which is the microchip inside the vaccines." But that conspiracy doesn't account for the fact that you have these, which literally can track you everywhere. And it's mainly to sell your information to advertisers so they can sell you things. And so, capitalism, baby. I don't have a problem with that, though. Again, the vaccine stuff is just utter nonsense. But she believed it. And now, what got her to stop believing in it is talking to a neurologist. Now, she explained, the neurologist explained how the mRNA vaccines work. I'm a teacher and had access to the vaccine before a lot of people I know, so I decided to go ahead and take it. After getting the vaccine, I had the usual run-of-the-mill symptoms. The weirdest one was really bad arm pain about 10 days after the injection. But as a result, she is back to teaching in the classroom. She cried the first day because her students were just so happy to be back. It was worth it to see their joy. Well, I love it. See, no horrible negative effects other than some arm pain, which is, of course, to be expected. All right. Another one. Amanda, I'm a strong supporter of social distancing and wearing masks. Okay, we're up to a good start. When the vaccine became available, I was very hesitant because the development seemed rushed. But my 27-year-old son got his, and since I had been so supportive of the social distancing restrictions, I felt almost embarrassed for not getting it. How can I preach to people about doing their part, but I don't do my part? So I got my first shot, and luckily there were no side effects, but tomorrow I'll get my second, and I hear the side effects could be really strong. Well, it really depends. But the good news is I purposely scheduled on a Friday, so I would have the weekend to recover. Look, I got mine on a Friday as well, my second shot. I actually turned out doing pretty well as far as symptoms go. Slight headache, a little bit tired, some fatigue. My wife, headache, a little bit of fever, tiredness, lasted a couple of days. We're good to go. Now, another person. I live in Alaska and became an EMT. I was initially a little hesitant to get my COVID vaccine because I'm in a few Facebook groups where other medics and even nurses were commenting that they wanted to wait to see more clinical trials. Again, with I think it's too rushed, right? He then said, or they, I should say, they studied how it works, the ingredients, and other types of vaccines, and immediately came to the conclusion that it was both safe and effective. Now I always tell patients mRNA vaccines are proven safe. And they use this example. It's teaching your body to make up a guy, then get really mad at that guy. I found that one online somewhere and thought it was a hilarious and great way to explain the mRNA type COVID vaccines like Pfizer and Moderna. Now I can't believe I was hesitant to get that particular vaccine. The proof of vaccination cards are nothing new, and getting the vaccine is an easy way to take control and feel a sense of power and community after such a stressful year where many felt like there was no way to help out and nothing they could do. So, look, there's a lot of stories like this of people who were hesitant. They talked to somebody, or they thought it out, and it was like, you know what, I probably should. I mean, and there are people with legitimate fears of needles. And that's something to consider as well, okay? But at the end of the day, you should get your vaccine. And sometimes I understand that people need time, right? And somebody who is patient and understanding to talk to them and explain, what the facts are and what's actually going to happen, okay? And getting the facts is a good thing. That's why before I got my shot, my second one, I actually looked up the ingredients for the Pfizer vaccine. And I even talked about this in a previous video, okay, of what's in it. One of the things was like, basically, I can't now think of what it is, but it's a laxative, essentially. So they put laxative in the vaccine. So, and it was, again, harmless. And now I'm actually protected, 95% protected from getting sick. And if I do have a breakthrough infection, well, then it's very, very unlikely that the symptoms would end up getting bad enough to be hospitalized. That's why you get the vaccine. That's why you get the vaccine. And then also in order to build that herd immunity, so we can all kind of get back to living, And so, yeah, getting information is a great thing as long as you get it from real sources. And I say real sources because And this is somebody who's talking about vaccines on YouTube, and I realize the irony about this. But you should probably avoid conspiracy YouTube videos. You should also try to avoid natural health gurus and other types of people who are trying to hawk alternative medicines. And if you do that, if you go to actual experts, actual medical professionals, you'll come to the conclusion that it is better to get the vaccine. I know facts aren't going to convince everyone. This guy probably not going to be convinced, at least until, he sees that later on, during cold and flu season, during the fall, that his family is going to be just fine, and maybe he'll change his mind then. But every mind changed, every person vaccinated helps us to get closer to defeating the virus and getting back to living our lives again. And really, isn't that the goal? It is for me. Quick break. We'll be back with Fartlow. Isn't it funny how we can go from a really, really serious discussion on vaccines to a Fartlow story? Stay right here. You'll see what it's all about. Around the Nation.
Dumps. Big, massive dumps.
Who's got a hammer?
Welcome back to the show. Waldorf Nation right here. All right, so fun stuff. Dr. Zippy Scoots with the super chat, very kind. I'm a physicist. Now people can see the battle that we deal with by bringing people, by people bringing belief to a fact fight all the damn time. They simply don't believe complicated things they don't understand. True. Let's see. Get the vaccine and wear a mask like we did. Agreed. Thank you, by the way. Someone let Jeff have access to the soundboard. It's just me. And I've got the soundboard all day long.
Wet ass P word.
Okay. Anyway, thank you for becoming a member, Breeze. I do appreciate that. All right. As promised, after this, thank you, Lizzie Napon, for subscribing 3 months for Prime. S. Bloom, 85. Thank you for the 7 months for Prime. Appreciate that. I love it. All right. Fartlow. I promised it. Now, if you were terminally online like myself, you might have noticed Eve Fartlow trending on Twitter. Now, if you are not terminally online, then you're thinking, what the hell are you talking about? You weirdo. Well, okay. So let me give you the context, because it actually turns out to be a story of somebody whining about cancel culture again. So now Eve Barlow is a self-described Zionist, and she has been, she's got some pretty, I think, in my opinion, terrible opinions, especially when it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And so as a result of some of those ideas, some of her tweets got ratioed on social media. Now, she, was defending, of course, the Israeli attacks on Palestinians. Now, those attacks, of course, have devastated entire neighborhoods of Gaza, killing hundreds, injuring thousands. And while the attacks themselves have ceased with a ceasefire, the oppression continues. Neighborhoods like Sheikh Jarrah are still, seeing crackdowns by Israeli police, military police, and you have people being forcibly evicted from their homes to make way for Jewish settlers on basically illegally occupied land. And of course, you have, demonstrations that are happening in one of the most holiest mosques in East Jerusalem. And then you have Israeli police that, again, crack down on them as well. And so while all of this is happening, Barlow is claiming that some mean tweets are akin to what she calls a digital pogrom. Mean tweets. Yeah. Here's what she writes. Quote, perhaps it was a form of digital waterboarding aimed at forcing me to surrender, delete all my accounts, log out of all my devices, and commit what she calls digital suicide. These are her actual words. And then adds, Eve Fartlow is not my name, regardless of how many thousands of times it's echoed back at me by trolls online. I coined it the world's first social media pogrom, the activity that Jews, Zionist Jews in particular, experienced all over the web was bizarre at best and invalidating, abusive, and dehumanizing at worst. Zionist Jews weren't just being unfollowed on Twitter for advocating for themselves and their brothers and sisters in Israel and Palestine. We were also losing access to direct messages and comment abilities, having posts removed for violating community guidelines, while blatant anti-Semitism online almost never receives that same treatment, and having our accounts threatened with temporary suspension or closure. Now remember, we are only talking about Twitter. So she thinks that she's being digitally waterboarded when somebody unfollows her for having a really terrible take online. What? What is this? Come on. Come on. It's crazy to think that an unfollow is, akin to silencing her, much less a digital pogrom. A little overboard, okay? And look, the nature of social media is that people will get mean tweets. All right? Yeah, I get mean tweets all the time. Now, she was getting mean tweets, getting mean DMs, comments. I'm sure some of them were, sexist, misogynistic. Some were, might have even been anti-Semitic. Yes. A shocker to find out that some people on the internet are mean. I know. That's kind of a part of being online. Again, I get terrible messages all the time. I'm getting them as we speak. I see you. And so, unfortunately, that's the nature of online discourse. Twitter itself is kind of a dumpster fire. You learn how to navigate it, though. But the thing is, online discourse being a dumpster fire is not the same as digital oppression. Okay? And again, there is real anti-Semitism that's going on. There are real threats of violence. I'm sure she's received some of them. I'm against all of that, 100%. But changing her name to Fartlow? Not one of them. Again, take it from somebody who constantly, when I was growing up, being called Waldork. Okay, I don't care. I think we're both going to be okay, for having a nickname. And who hasn't had a terrible nickname growing up? Seriously. But let me give you an example of one of her tweets that got ratioed, by the way. That, kind of started this whole thing. Take a look. My Jewish friend saw a sign that said free parking and panicked that it said free Palestine. The Jews are tired. Why? For one, why is she speaking for all Jewish people? Now, as a non-Jewish person, isn't that I myself am a non-Jewish person, but I've always been told that if you try to put them all in kind of a block, that's deeply anti-Semitic. Why would you do that? Doesn't make any sense. And not only that, but oh my God, I'm triggered by a free Palestine side, which really didn't even say free Palestine. It said free parking. Wow. How is this reality? There's a real conversation that we're having online now. Okay. Now her article gets worse because then she rails against celebrities who are, siding with the Palestinians who are getting the crap bombed out of them. Again, not siding with Hamas, siding with the Palestinian people who are suffering under illegal occupation. Okay? And so she says, You have Mark Ruffalo, Susan Sarandon, Dua Lipa, The Hadids, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Halsey, Snoop Dogg, Manchester United, and the BLM movement, among many other influencers, including Jews like Sarah Silverman and Natalie Portman, all based, by the way, throwing their full support behind a reductive, inflammatory, and dangerous case against Israel. It's very appealing to join in. Oh, yes, of course, that mob mentality. Yes, that's what it is. All of them. The combined strength of their platforms is an excellent way to drown out the online voice of Zionists with the chutzpah to defend themselves and survive in this conflict, both in Israel and in the diaspora. Zionists literally run Israel. And for the longest time, that has been the only voice that has been represented in America. Now, 2 years ago, nobody could speak up, for Palestinians, for the Palestinian people. And now they're able to. Now the Palestinians actually have a voice. And yet, you get this person saying, oh my God, no, they're silencing us. And besides, again, what conflict? It's not an equal conflict. This is a literal occupation that the UN has ruled illegal. Okay, the IDF gets billions of dollars from the United States in weapons. They have an incredibly advanced military with incredible capabilities, both offensive and defensive. Iron Dome, for example. I mean, versus Hamas, that's got some rocket launchers. Now, those rocket launchers, thankfully, are vastly ineffective. And I'm glad that they are. I don't want people dying. I don't want people getting hit by rockets in Israel. Just like I also don't want people getting hit by airstrikes in, buildings like reporters for the Associated Press, for example, and Al Jazeera that were bombed. I don't want, people getting bombed. I don't want neighborhoods being destroyed anywhere. And look, I think Hamas is a terrible organization. And I think that Hamas thrives as a result of the occupation. Okay? And the right-wing conservative government of Israel depends on Hamas to give them the justification of their increased militarism and occupation of Gaza. They have this weird, volatile codependence on each other, whereas you have innocent Jewish people and innocent Palestinian civilians that are getting caught in the middle of this. But apparently Eve Barlow, or Fartlow, and the people who push, to continue those illegal settlements, they're the real victims in this. Oh, yes. In fact, she had called, as an example of her victimhood, Linda Sarsour. Linda Sarsour had been blocked by Barlow. She's like, I'm going to preemptively block Linda Sarsour. And so, as a result, Sarsour tweeted with a picture of the block, great, wonderful. And so Barlow, after that, was like, this is an online lynching. That's what she wrote. Online lynching. You've got to be kidding me. Again, this is pure 100% Karen energy. And I get it. There is real anti-Semitism, but it's not an unfollow. Okay? It's not calling her a fart name. Okay? That's an example of the internet getting tired of your bullshit victim mentality. All right? If anything hurts your cause, makes you look bad, it's being a Karen that can't even take any sort of light criticism, especially for political positions that are no longer popular. Those political positions, by the way, are basically in favor of oppressing a certain group of people who are right now forced to live in the world's largest open-air prison. Get some goddamn perspective. Perspective. And by the way, Seth Rogen, fantastic what he said about Fartlow. So, I mean, let me give you an example, by the way. Speaking of responses to this, some of the tweets that are dunking on her. One person says, honestly, this is hilarious. Eve Fartlow just really self-owned so hard, and her article is way beyond dramatic, talking about being digitally waterboarded. Effing go outside. Get some air. Step away from the internet for a while. This is like Barry Weiss all over again. What is it with people and their just incredibly thin skin? Another person says, when we fart high, she fart low. Digital waterboarding right there. Do you see that? Terrible, terrible. Another person says, Eve, darling, if any of your ancestors died or survived in an actual pogrom, like mine did, you just sharded on their memories for the rest of time. Great work. Great work. And then, of course, just thousands and thousands of tweets simply saying, Eve Fartlow. It's the Streisand effect, which, by the way, is probably going to be replaced by the Fartlow effect. Digital pogrom, everybody. Digital pogrom. When do we reach digital slavery? Soon. Very soon. Okay. Karens always make everything about themselves and always victims distracting from real problems. True. 100%. 100%. All right. One more story here. Texas state lawmakers are close to passing some legislation in order to overhaul their state's energy grid. Now that, of course, follows the disastrous and deadly winter storm back in February that left millions of people, about nearly 5 million homes and businesses, without electricity for days. In some very incredibly cold weather, more than 100 people ended up dying from exposure. You had, millions of dollars in damage when it came to, burst pipes and things like that, flooding. Now, the solution apparently that Texas lawmakers have come to, however, in order to fix the damage, is to make the regular people pay for it. That's right, regular people. The Texas Tribune is reporting that, quote, most Texans will likely have higher charges in their power bills for years to come to cover gas utilities, electric cooperatives, and electric companies' financial losses from the storm, and to prevent customers from having to pay huge bills in a short time. Which, again, they're like painting this as, hey, we're just going to space out your bill, from the mess that we caused by not weatherproofing our shit from a freak ice storm. But you're still going to pay for it, but we're not going to make you pay for it all now. Wait a minute. Why are Texas residents having to pay for this at all when it wasn't even their fault? Again, remember, the ice storm was so devastating to the power grid because these companies decided not to weatherize their pipelines and their operations. They did that so that they could make more profits. Like, no, we're going to cut corners. We're going to make sure, that we don't have to pay for that extra weatherproofing because, it's Texas. What's going to happen? A freak ice storm? Oops. Uh-oh. Not only that, but Texas itself maintains its own power grid, separate from the rest of the country. Why? So they can ignore regulation. Of course. And some of those regulations might have forced them to weatherize their grid to ensure that this doesn't happen, or to have a backup. And now, as a result of them having their own grid, it's heavily deregulated. Now, there are some positives to that. There's a lot of downsides as well. Now, the only positive that you could think of as well, they have very competitive rates. When things are working normal, when the gas is flowing, you can get some pretty cheap prices out of them. Okay. But when things happen, and this is why regulation is important, it's why having a backup grid investment is important. When stuff happens, you have that backup, you have that supply, and you don't have these out of control, insane prices. What you saw, of course, in Texas after the storm. you had these companies charging people tens of thousands of dollars in bills for just a couple of days usage. I mean, it's really awful, really awful. And so, yes, it was their fault. The grid went down, and now their free market system is looking for a little bit of socialism to pay for their losses. Free market, free market for these, socialism for me. According to the Tribune, lawmakers are close to passing 2 bills that would allow the companies to seek billions of dollars in state-approved bonds backed by charges on customers' bills to stabilize the state's distressed energy market. After state electricity regulators set power prices to maximum rate, $9,000 per megawatt hour, and natural gas fuel prices spiked during the storm, many companies, especially natural gas utilities and rural electric cooperatives, were financially wrecked. Others owe massive debts to the Electric Reliability Council of Texas. Lawmakers may soon approve about $4.5 billion in ratepayer-backed bonds for natural gas utilities and another $2 billion in such bonds for electric cooperatives. Additionally, the House Bill 4492 would loan about $800 million to ERCOT, which is the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, through the state's Economic Stabilization Fund, known as the Rainy Day Fund, to pay for debts to the grid operator. So this is, of course, all sorts of state money, taxpayer money, going to these corporations. And then, on top of that, Texas residents are going to have to pay with higher electric prices. Now, ERCOT, by the way, is a transaction house for the electricity market. It's essentially an auction. So when companies apparently couldn't pay their debts after the storm, the other companies got shorted for the electricity that they sold. ERCOT will then pass on the cash to companies who are owed money. The state's rainy day fund, by the way, for 2020, ended with a balance of nearly $10 billion. Well, if they have so much in their rainy day fund, why are you charging the customers more? What is the point of the rainy day fund if you're just going to turn around and not use it for a rainy day? Or in this case, a snowy day. I mean, especially when the alternative is to raise rates for people for something that they had absolutely nothing to do with. I mean, the fact that this was the fault of the companies for cutting corners in order to make more profit just makes it even more disgusting. It's total bullshit. As one Texas resident writes, so let me get this right. Electric company failed to provide contractual service to me. We sat without electricity for 7 days. House water pipes froze and burst. House got flooded. But the company gets money. And I pay for their financial troubles. Is that right? Yes, absolutely. That's right. 100%. You, my friend, just got completely and utterly screwed. Another person says, so I sat in the freezing cold for 3 days, and Governor Greg Abbott's solution is to raise my rates so that the power company can make up for those days that I didn't pay them? Texas Governor Greg Abbott needs to go. And then finally, so the power grid companies get to keep their profits, provide inferior products, face no consequences, and if they decide to improve their services, the consumers pay for it? In what reality does this make sense? Well, it makes sense in end stage capitalism, Texas style. This is what happens with Republican conservative governance. And by the way, speaking of, I see some of you talking about alternative energy. They're also in this budget going and attacking solar and wind and geothermal. You know, because of course, blaming them for, oh, they didn't have enough reserve power, and that's why energy is so expensive. It didn't have anything to do with oil and gas not being weatherized. Republicans. All right. Tempedan, thank you for giving out those 2 tier 1 community subs. Listen upon, again, thank you for subscribing with for 3 months of Prime. Let's see. I don't know if I gave her a shout out already, but here's another one. Waldork is a wise 11-17 wizard to blast you with facts, and level 3 in mount just to slap you harder. I'm more of a paladin, but yes. Thank you. social justice paladin. That's what it is. Okay. Anyway, thank you for those. I do appreciate the super chats. That helps the show. Really, really do appreciate that. Again, thank you so much for watching, for liking and sharing. Please remember to do that. Helps us helps us out greatly. Thank you all. Love you, and remember, change begins with you. We'll see you all tomorrow, right here, 4 p.m. Eastern, around the nation. You have a good night.
Who's got a hammer? I have not loved this conversation.
Dumps. Big, massive dumps.
Tighten up my knee. I like my knee tight.
Please clap. They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.